This is the Starlab Deep Dive. Hello and welcome to this month's episode of the Starlab Deep Dive. I'm Moritz, your host, and today I have the great pleasure of welcoming not one, but two guests on the show here. Sitting across from me, I have Klaus Ambos, CEO of the Starlab Group, ready to give us the inside scoop from a manufacturer perspective. And on the other side of me, I have Kerstin Hermuth-Kleinschmidt, an absolute expert when it comes to sustainability in life sciences. Klaus, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking, and I'm very happy to be in this episode again.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. And Kerstin, thank you for joining us as well today. As I've already mentioned, you are the expert when it comes to sustainability in life sciences. Do you mind introducing yourself to our listeners out there and maybe giving us a quick rundown of how you built the knowledge base that you have today?
Thanks for the invitation. And yes, about me, I'm a chemist focused on biochemistry during my studies. I've worked in the life sciences industry for several years, and now I'm a consultant for sustainability in life sciences, which means I'm focusing on the one hand on the people in the lab, so giving workshops, presentations on how to work more sustainable. But the people in the lab also do companies that are working on sustainable solutions. So my second focus is really on the sustainability in companies, and I'm giving them advice how to work more sustainable in their companies, because I think this only goes together. And from my background, I'm not only having the background in biochemistry, but I also have a background in environmental management and environmental economy.
Very cool. Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you on today. And that's really exactly today's topic. We're talking about sustainability in the life science industry, an industry that has, of course, become much more front and center of global discussions right now due to many different factors, if not also COVID-19. And the sciences are, of course, increasingly being understood as an essential component in the search for feasible pathways towards sustainable development. But as I understand it, especially R&D work has incredible high resource consumptions, from energy to water, consumables, and so on. So, Kerstin, I was wondering, are there some facts and figures that you can tell us a little bit more about so that we can understand the scope of the challenge that lies in front of us?
Yes, I can. Well, actually, regarding, for example, the pharmaceutical industry, they have more emissions than the automotive industry. So in 2018, they emitted about 52 million tons of CO2. And in Germany alone, it was in 2017 about 1.5 million tons.
And I mean, one of the things that was striking to me was that in these studies, we're talking about 2017. And my first question was, is there nothing more recent? But at the moment, it's quite a field that's a little bit understudied. Isn't that right?
Yes, that's right. Well, actually, I did not find any figures which are more actual. And yeah, it's really underestimated. So everybody is looking on, let's say, the automotive industry. But regarding the pharma industry, there are no more actual figures.
Yeah, super interesting. And I think, Klaus, we had a quick chat about that as well, right? That it's just one of those dark areas where we're not quite sure about, how can we make sure that this problem is more described in the future? And one of the first steps would be to undertake some studies in that region. So what would be your opinion on how we can improve that area of our knowledge so that we understand the scope of the challenge?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm a little bit irritated that not more actual data are available. I mean, that's such an important topic, and people cannot really think about it and become aware of it if you cannot present data of at least 2019, if not 2020. I mean, we are currently in 21. So we, from the industry side, we try to really process and also monitor and discuss all the data regarding our consumptions and our environmental impact, and that pharma is not basically having these data. I cannot really believe. I guess that's just because nobody's asking for that. It should be available, but as long as nobody wants to know, why should you hand it out without any reason? But the point earlier made that there is a high consumption of energy, water, and also single-use plastics. I mean, as Starlab is basically known for the pipette tip program, we of course sell single-use plastics, and the reason is not that we would not like to reduce the impact, but the requirements of the researchers have to be fulfilled. And unfortunately, right now, there's no other material available but polypropylene and polyethylene to fulfill all these needs. And therefore, the way we deal with the topic is that we first of all try to reduce in every new product the plastic that is used to build the product. So it's a mandatory requirement that the new product has less impact than the old one. And then we try to really make sure that it can be used as long as possible. And if it's just single-use plastic, that at least we take care to recycle it as best as we can, and then make reasonable products out of it. We have embarked on that journey, and it will be a multi-year, journey that we are undertaking. But it is important that all of us in our life sciences industry business are really taking care of that and addressing the topic. But again, so far, there is a must to use PP and PE because there's no other material currently available that fulfill all the requirements of the researchers. And that's, of course, a pity. But at least whatever we can do from our side will be done.
So Klaus, you mentioned something really important there. There's a lot of challenges when moving into more sustainable solutions for manufacturers like Starlab, who play a vital role, of course, in supporting the development of smarter, more ecologically viable solutions. And single-use plastics are often seen as the necessary evil. Kerstin, I was wondering, from your point of view, what are some of the major challenges that companies have when trying to become more ecologically sustainable, while also, of course, adhering to the rules and regulations that need to be followed in, for example, the lab?
I think regarding the plastics, it's good to reduce the plastics, but you have to use it in the lab for some experiments. So it's mandatory that you use them, because if you use another solution and then you have to repeat your experiments, this doesn't help. The second thing is the recycling. People would like to recycle the plastics, but the problem is if your plastics is contaminated, then you cannot recycle it, but you have to burn it. And another challenge, or let's say solutions that companies would like to work on, I could imagine, is to make plastics on the basis of renewable resources. But you have to have the quality, and you have to make sure that there are no contaminants and so on. And it's also the pricing. And as a company, you also have to have a look on this. Other things that, I think companies are facing are the reducing of their resource consumptions, like reducing energy in their production sites, or also to see the political directives which are challenging for the companies, which are coming. Let's say, think of the Green New Deal from the European Union. They would like to achieve a circular economy. This will also be challenging, I think, for the companies, especially in the life sciences.
Yeah, you mentioned some really interesting points there. On one side, the energy consumption, of course, of laboratories. In our last article that we published on Starlab, you can see that, the only area that sort of consumes more energy than labs are data centers worldwide, which was fascinating for me to find out. And on the other hand, Klaus, I know we've had a couple conversations about closing the loop, right? So we talk about recycling plastics and making sure that those can then be used to make your own products again. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what the challenges are in that sort of area.
Yeah, first of all, I have to say that my true belief is that all companies in our life sciences industries are continuously working on reducing the energy consumption, reducing the material that is needed to basically produce a product. And I do also know that other companies are working on this complete cycle of recycling and reusing of the recycled material. What we do at Starlab, though, is that we really analyze which parts of the products, and that's coming back to your point, Kerstin, which part of the products are okay to be recycled, not contaminated. And you are totally right. The tips itself can never be recycled because they will always be contaminated. But see, for example, the packaging of the products itself can be done in a much better way, more environmentally friendly. You may not need to have 2 or 3 layers of plastic around the products, although we have to make sure that they are in a way, safe against dust and transportation damages and all this stuff. But you can also, for example, recycle. When we stick to my example of pipette tips, you can recycle the box, the wafer, the lid, and basically the packaging. And out of that material, and that's very important to say that we use only single plastic material. So it's a pure PP or pure PE. That's a prerequisite for the recycling process itself. And then we try really to develop products in a way that they can easily be deassembled and then recycled. And we have, as I said a couple of minutes earlier, embarked on a multiple-year journey. It's easier said than done to use recycling material again in your process of building up a new product. So there are some physical limitations when it comes to especially the percentage of recycled material that you can use in a product to build up a new product. But again, Starlab, we are totally convinced that we, at the end of that journey, will be able to fully build products out of recycled materials where there is no contamination involved in it. So basically the outer box, the carton, the packaging, the wafers, the lids, everything. And this will definitely help the environment and to become more green.
When we're talking about sustainability, many people think of ecological aspects like climate change, which is very, very important. But the triple bottom line means that you have to take into account all the 3 aspects. So the social, ecological, and economical aspects. Because in the end, let's say you're a company working on a green product, you also have to make profit. So it really means to have the whole picture in your mind. The SDGs, so the so-called Sustainable Development Goals, which have been published in 2015, these are 17 goals, which really are the big picture about sustainability. So these goals are looking at social aspects, at economic aspects, and also on ecological aspects. So, for example, you have the SDG number 13, which is about climate action, or you have the SDG about gender equality, or you have an SDG about responsible consumption and production. And these goals are important, and for a company, it's a good roadmap for them, because they can really have a look on all of these, but then they should focus which of these goals are really important for us. And second, where can we have an impact if you're looking deeper into them. So, for example, regarding responsible consumption and production would mean where can we have an impact looking into our production sites, for example, or what can we do for our customers. Mm-hmm. To have a better product.
Klaus, maybe you could, you're obviously aware of these sustainable development goals, and I believe you have quite a bit of insight there on how you as Starlab are also choosing them and maybe going ahead with certain ones. How do you sort of manage that process internally, and how do you also check that you're addressing the right ones? And maybe you could give us a little bit of insight on how something like that actually works in practice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it all starts basically with me being the president and CEO of a company. If I'm not totally convinced of, sustainability, how should the team be? I have to be the lighthouse in our company, which I am, and I take it very serious. And because I take it very serious, I don't want to be seen or noticed as a company who's doing greenwashing. That's absolutely not what we want. So in order to achieve that, we only set ourselves goals that we can really reach. And very important is that we are always authentic. I mean, we need to make sure that there is a certain transparency available, that we can prove what we preach and practice accordingly. And people otherwise would never trust us being a good and better company. And that's why I'm always saying we are not green. We strive to become greener, because green, I'm not sure if we can ever meet this requirement, but we want to become greener. And we have to make sure that the results we are telling, that you can prove them. So it has to be really something that is fact-driven. Otherwise, you can say whatever you like, and if people cannot prove it, they might believe it or not. Key is a very good communication with all of our stakeholders, and especially with our, the most important stakeholder for our company is our customer. So we need to have a really close communication loop with them to find out what they really want from us. What is their requirement towards our company in regards of sustainability. And as we said before, not everything is possible. I mean, we need to enable these bright minds in our research to fight against all these diseases of mankind. I mean, I'm not only talking about COVID, it's also cancer, this multi-resistant bacteria in hospitals, and a lot of other things that they are currently working on. And in order to get good results, they need single-use plastics. That's a fact. We cannot change that. But we can really stay in close contact. What else around this topic we as a manufacturer can do to help them also to become greener and reach their sustainability goals, especially in the pharma industry. They have set their goals. And we need to really decide as a company, what do we want to focus on? Sustainability is such a big topic, and it's so holistic that smaller companies like Starlab will not be able to fulfill everything. So we have decided to really focus, first of all, to make our products greener, to use green energy only, to become greener in our own offices. So small steps in total can really relate to great results. And then we are also taking care of all the social aspects. Step by step, we are, following the Agenda 2030. But we have to do it stepwise. And for me, it would be, again, kind of greenwashing or marketing if I would say we are fulfilling everything. So I guess that for the audience, it is just important for us to be transparent and to really be fact-driven in order to get their trust.
Also very refreshing to hear, a very realistic approach to the problem, I think. And Kerstin, I read one of your articles where you actually outlined a 3-step process in order for companies to sort of choose which SDGs are most relevant to them and also then make an impact. Maybe you want to take us through those quickly so that our listeners out there can maybe also put that into practice when making sure that they're also on track towards achieving their goals when it comes to, for example, the SDGs.
Yeah, sure. Well, actually, first step, as I said, really take a look into the SDGs and have a look which one are really important for you, where you can say, there I can make an impact. So, for example, regarding the responsible consumption and production. And it's really, so you're starting really broad, and then you're focusing on the next step. It's important to have a look on what are we already doing, what are we already doing to fulfill these the SDGs that we've chosen, and where are also points where we could become better. very important is also to come into dialogue, which means to talk to your stakeholders. These are your customers, of course, but also your suppliers, your employees, all the people that you're in contact with as a company, and just also asking them, what are you seeing in us, and where do you think do we have an impact on you? And then, well, then you're choosing really the most important SDGs, and then you're looking into detail. So what are we doing? Do we have all the KPIs? Do we have all the information we need? And then you're going on and making your goals and taking action. And as it's clear, it's a progress. So I think you'll never be finished, because you always will find something. But it's really important to go this way. Yes, and I think to be also in dialogue, and to also show transparently and authentically what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Me and Klaus were just having a quick discussion before this podcast started, because I noticed his glass bottle sitting on his desk, and he told me a quick story about how there's a lot of progress going on inside Starlab as well. So, for example, last year for the Starlab Day, every employee received a soul bottle, a glass bottle, to not only drink more tap water, but also be able to, come away from plastic bottles. And also with each bottle going €1 towards Viva Con Agua projects for fresh water in Africa. And now you've gone even a step further, Klaus. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about, inside Starlab, what are the small changes you're making that can have a great impact, and also get employees on board in this sustainability mission?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it all starts with asking the employees what they would like to change. So we, from time to time, get information and ideas from our employees, on the topics that they are regarding sustainability that are important to them. For example, we have now a filtering system installed in our kitchens in order to even filter the tap water, filter out the bacteria, viruses and everything, so that the tap water is really pure tap water. And we also set up soda machines left and right, these filter systems, so that you can decide if you want to have plain water or water with gas. So we are totally getting rid of any kind of plastic bottles. That's just one example. Then, the people are very concerned about the energy that we are using here. So it's 100% now wind energy, which is also very important. People are also interested if we are really splitting up, the trash that we have in the right way, so that it can be recycled. So there are a lot of small things coming out of the employees' ideas that a company can really change. And again, comes back to my earlier point that I said, small steps will at the end lead to a great result. You cannot do everything at once. You have to be very focused, and you have to say, okay, that's the topic I do in May. That's the topic I'm gonna do in June and July and so on. And then, you will really see the results. And the good thing is it's a positive cycle. The more you can prove to your employees that it has a positive impact, the better the ideas are becoming that are sent in. So it is really about motivation, energizing, and making sure that people are also rewarded. So if there's a great idea, for becoming greener, people might get really, an extra reward for just telling us. So another topic that we are working on is, for example, that we have a contract now in order to lease e-bikes or bikes for our employees. They can take advantage of that contract because we get it for a better pricing. And some of the colleagues have already started to order these bikes. And by that, we want people to let their cars staying at home and just come by bike. And it's everywhere, a little bit here, left, right, and there, but everything has to pay in the big topic of sustainability. And I'm pretty convinced that in a couple of years from now, we are so much better in what we do than today. This, coming back to Kerstin's point, it will never end. There will always be new ideas, but we as a company, we have to be open. And again, what Kerstin said, not every great idea to become more sustainable is also financeable. So we have to always keep in mind that we are a company. We have to make profit.
Quick anecdote from my side. I was chatting to someone the other day about sustainability in companies, and I really like this point of that every little small step can go a long way if you add them all together. So what we were talking about was trash cans in offices, and Klaus, like you were saying, employees are looking at, is it being separated properly into recycling and non-recyclables and stuff like that. And actually, this person I was talking to mentioned that in each office, getting rid of the trash bag and just having it as a paper trash or a recycling under the desk, and then having one bin per floor, which you're able to put everything else in, reduces the amount of plastic bags significantly used in a company. And I thought that was so fascinating and very relevant to what we're talking about, because it's such a small change that I think everybody would be on board with. That, okay, I can only put paper in the trash can in my office, which, let's face it, it's an office. That's probably what you're doing anyway. But you're reducing such a significant percentage of the plastic bags used. I thought that was super fascinating, and also goes to show how such a little step can go such a long way into creating a more sustainable company also internally. And I think that takes us to our last tip as well. You have to produce the right kind of content in order to share these messages with the world out there, right? So you have to decide what's interesting and to accept that it is, and tell exciting stories that people want to hear. Kerstin, I know that's your last and final tip to avoid greenwashing in your article. What's your opinion on that? What is the right content, and how does a company go about finding out what works for them?
I think the right content is something that is of value for your customer. So, for example, I really like what Starlab is doing with giving tips for a sustainable lab, for example. So this is something what a customer could use directly. Or another tip is just to have a look into the sciences world, for example, and to say, okay, what is interesting for the customers and how does it connect with our company? Or that you're telling what you're doing. So, for example, just telling what you're doing inside and giving glass bottles to your customers, or giving them the possibilities to rent electric bikes, for example. So these are stories that you could tell, and I think it's also important. So when you're communicating, it's also for inspiring people to change what they're doing, and to say, okay, it's not so difficult to change something, or this is interesting, and this is something we also would like to do.
I think that's the main point of today's podcast as well, right? Inspiring people out there to maybe get started, or maybe have another look at critically what they're doing. And it was super interesting to talk about this with you, and also have a lot of different perspectives from the manufacturer side, but also from an expert. Kerstin, thank you so much for being there today to sort of give us a little bit more factual insight on how that is actually working out there in the labs around the world. So I think the most important thing is starting, right? I think that's a good summary from today. We have, you have to stay authentic. You have to show customers your work in progress, but also your stakeholders. Communicate with them, create a dialogue in between you and your customers as well, and your employees, to make sure that all areas are being handled, and create that triple bottom line that is supposed to be in balance, and work towards that, at least with small steps that can be achieved along the way. And also produce the right content that really motivates people, and, like you said, inspires people to do the right thing, and also look at maybe new opportunities that they have to become more ecologically sustainable. So thank you both so much for taking the time to talk with me today. It was super interesting. Klaus, your insights from the manufacturer perspective. Kerstin, thank you for being the expert in the room and telling us a little bit about the facts and figures. And I think over the next couple of years, we'll have to do another couple of talks to see how far we've come since the current day, because progress is happening rapidly.
Thank you.
So to everybody out there, thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. If you want to hear more, you can visit us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you like to listen to your podcasts. I'm looking forward for you to tune in to the next episode, where we'll have more interesting topics, more experts to interview about the hottest topics in science. Looking forward to hear from you soon, and also let us know if you enjoyed the content today. Thank you very much, and we will see us in the next podcast.